appears you caught me at a bad time. One moment.
Hello guys, it is I, and today we will be talking about disease across the ages. Now, I have a pretty good chance that you guys already know what a disease is. But for those in the back, I'm looking at you, Quinn. A disease is when a germ or pathogen gets into your body, reproduces by using your resources, causes harm, and gets the hell out. These often cause immune reactions, such as and not limiting to fever, coughing, sneezing, vomiting from the other end, skin welts and rashes, bleeding from every orifice, and other things I will not be getting into because they're too unsavory for a school-appropriate video. These are often caused by microorganisms, such as viruses, bacteria, protozoa, and fungi. I will not be getting into allergens, One moment. I gotta go slam myself in the toilet. Back. Prions and other parasites. I will be getting into chemicals that cause disease. Or disease-like symptoms, bodily harm. We'll be starting with the bubonic plague, otherwise known as the Black Death. This bacterium's scientific name is Yersinia pestis, and it originates from Asia. Via the Silk Road trade, it gets into Europe, and then later on there's another wave that happens between Asia and the west coast of the United States, but we will not be talking about that. You see, this disease is often transmitted through flea bite, which then, would hop and hitch onto rats. I wonder which cities were known for rats during that time, 14th century. That's right, the epicenters such as Paris and London. Once bitten, it gets into your lymph nodes, causing large swelling, which is the big bubons that happen under arms and behind your ears. Later on in the disease, it also causes a blackening of your fingertips, noses, ears, toes, because of the lack of circulation in your body, due to your body basically destroying itself, trying to kill the bugger. You see, not all was lost, though, because we had some great innovations, such as the masks that they used. They were often filled with herbs and good-smelling things, because they believed in a thing called miasmas, which is the concept of which bad odors spawn bugs and disease. They were not right. They also wore oil-slicked clothing, such as my lovely darling Eugene over here. This oil-slicked clothing would prevent fleas from holding on and getting onto the layer of our skin, thus often protecting them from disease. Also, they would poke dead people with canes to avoid touching the filthiness that they are. About 30 to 60% of Europeans' population died during this time, or for a better number, 50 million people. The Middle East also suffered from this, having about 33% of their population dying. But besides that, now, the change that happened was quite polarizing, because there was religious, social, and economic change. Having about 1/3 to 2/3 of your population being displaced into the ground, it's kind of hard to prevent a famine from happening due to the lack of workers, thus an increase of wages. There's also the social change of cleanliness, because dirty things cause disease and all of that lovely stuff. And then there's the religious change to, people thinking that God was punishing them for some sin. And all of that. We'll now be moving on to our second lovely disease. A perfectly designed killer for humans. Tuberculosis. Next of all, we have tuberculosis, otherwise known as White Death. Its scientific name is Mycobacterium tuberculosis, and it has two forms, and by two forms I mean two stages. You have your inactive stage, where your immune system keeps it dormant by basically making a little barrier around the area of disease via dead immune cells, and it basically flows around in the bloodstream, and you don't know if you have it. Though testing can detect it via skin and blood work, most people don't do that because they don't know that they're sick. Then you have your active phase, where basically it bursts forth from said pustule in your blood and starts wreaking havoc on your lungs. This disease often incites a very severe immune reaction, which causes most of your damage, leading to, respiratory failure. Yeah. An estimated 3 million people in the US of A have the inactive version in their bodies as we speak, and the death toll is steadily rising. This disease has been around for a very long time, and is basically pretty sneaky itself in our own bodies, given that it can exist with all of our immune patrolling. And throughout the ages, along with other diseases such as pneumonia, it has been partly romanticized by people such as the Victorians. They romanticized a lot of things, given the ghostly appearance of such, which was a high beauty standard at the time. And due to it not killing a lot of people, usually annually about 1 million a year, it's often not talked about a lot, which is a sad thing. Though it has caused a lot of change, such as the screening for it, which can be improved still. But given that we have preventative measures such as tests and treatment, along with vaccines, it's a pretty good thing that it's down to the point where we often don't hear about it anymore. Next, moving on to another lovely thing that's far in the past. Smallpox. Next, we'll be talking about smallpox. I will not be studying the scientific name for this one because I'm tired of wrapping my mouth around those very big and mean words. Smallpox is a viral infection that we have traced back, as far back as mummies, back in 1500 BCE, which is quite impressive. This disease often starts with fever, nausea, and later progresses to oral ulcers. The holes that often form in your stomach, but in your mouth. Such as what I have right now, because I keep biting my freaking cheek, and it's annoying. Anyways, forget my rant. This disease later produces fluid-filled blisters with a slight depression that scab over. This can also cause, blindness. As we know, this was also used back in the days of the Middle Passage and Columbian Exchange, given that Native Americans were often given blankets and garments that were infected with smallpox, as a little lovely European mention of chemical warfare. As of today, it is completely eradicated. Its last natural occurring case happening in 1977, which is good. The few last samples are kept off in some lovely microbiology labs somewhere over the rainbow, along with its other dead relatives such as bubonic plague. Overall, this disease often leaves people scarred for life, but also came upon the first case of inoculation, later to be turned into vaccines. You see, inoculation has its roots all the way back to ancient days of immunization, back when Buddhist monks would take the contents of a pustule and basically blow it up your nose. This often caused a less putrid reaction, but you would still get sick with it and could get blindness or die. But if you didn't, you'll be immunized. And then this lovely guy came around and was like, hey, this disease doesn't happen in these milkmaids, but they get this other similar disease. So he starts by taking the pus from these blisters on cowpox and basically scoring them into your skin. This would give you like a mild fever, small welts on your hand from cowpox, and then you would be immunized to smallpox. Yippee! This was later applied, and now we see it in our own types of vaccines that use live but weakened or dead versions of the bacteria, viruses that we're trying to be immunized against, which is a lovely thing because now we don't have to worry about such things such as bubonic plague, Lyme's disease, tuberculosis, and all those other vaccines that you can get, which is good. Though the death toll is quite sad, given that was an estimated 400,000 per year back in the 18th century, Then at the end of its time, the last 100 years, it was estimated to kill about 500 million people, which is quite a lot. But due to the scientific aid and the start of understanding that diseases are not caused by bad smells, we started to progress and understand our world on a different level. But not on the level of animalcules, because we'll be talking about influenza, otherwise known as the flu. This is when a viral infection transfers from an animal into a human and successfully fixes around in there, such as swine flu, avian flu, and Spanish flu, which actually isn't from Spain. About 5 to 15% of the population contracts influenza, and there are 3 to 5 million severe cases annually. The death rate is about 650,000 respiratory deaths per year, but that is a much easier cost to pay than the other diseases that we mentioned in the beginning of this video. You see, the hard thing about influenza is that it easily mutates, because viruses are covered in lots of little bits, basically protein keys, that allows it to hook into your cell and basically causes your cell to accept it, thus giving it access to the genetic machinery that it needs to replicate itself. After that, it basically fills the cell until it reaches its point, and then poof. You now have a lot of more viruses, baby. But besides that, it gives doctors and health professionals a chance to play roulette with guessing what strains will be a major inconvenience during the year. So, during flu season, 3 things you must do. 1. Wash your hands. 2. Get vaccinated. And 3. Self-quarantine if you're sick. If you're feeling sick and you got school, don't go to school. You're going to cause a miniature epidemic. If you have younger siblings or younger cousins that you might go visit that are infants or very young, don't go. You will get them sick, and the mortality rate is about 30% for infants. So don't do it. Besides that, now we get to move on to something I can rant about, such as chemical poisoning. Yippee! Chemical poisoning is no laughing matter, and I will not continue with my little joke about these. Chemical poisoning often happens at the disregard of large corporations, often accidentally getting into our food, our products, and other things, and, into us, such as the lovely pigment Schilling's green, which utilized a lovely compound called arsenic, a poison that was often used in assassinations at the time. Other things include white paint, which often used lead, such as in the 70s, before the huge revelation that, oh no, lead's bad for you. I see you, Dutch boy. I see you trying to indoctrinate the children into loving the lead paint and putting it in everything. You see, the lead gave things a lovely sweet taste, which, that's why young little children eat it, thus causing developmental issues. Besides that, chemicals found their way into our food, such as lead and arsenic dyes and candies, which were later ushered out during the Gilded Age in Europe. The US was much slower due to its laissez-faire government style and lack of regulation, which was later changed due to our lovely Dr. Harvey Wiley. Yes! Besides that point, I'll stay out of the American side. Sorry, Miss Stilson. Besides that, other things such as coal tar dyes and unregulated use of preservatives would often cause other diseases laying dormant in the food to be ingested. Let's take milk. It often was preserved using formaldehyde when spoiled to give it a sweeter taste, but also improve its color. You also have the use of borax in meats, which would, again, prolong its shelf life, we could say. But then you could also eat spoiled meat, which is quite bad. This often caused moral outrage among the public. Thus, we take more attention to what we eat and how it's made. Thus, now we have stricter regulations, which is a good thing, because it makes sure we are all safe from these very lovely things. Besides that, now that we're getting up to more modern times, I think it's pretty good to end the video on something we're all very, very, very accustomed to. Drumroll, please. COVID-19 was our most recent pandemic, and it poked a lot of holes in how we saw ourselves and viewed society as a whole. Given that 81% of the people that got COVID experienced mild to moderate symptoms such as a fever, loss of smell and taste, coughing, and vomiting, not a lot of them properly masked, and it was hard to detect if it was COVID or just a normal cold or flu due to a lack of testing during the early stages of the disease, along with people traveling while not feeling well and not masking up properly. This led to it to quickly spread all around the globe and causing lockdowns of several sorts. Along with that, it exposed holes, such as lots of our stocks and such masks and respirators failed. This disease is a respiratory one, thus it goes into your lungs just like tuberculosis, and while your immune system tries to protect you, it ends up, doing more harm than good, and soon you don't have lungs anymore because they look like Swiss cheese, and you can't breathe with Swiss cheese, guys. Besides that, lots of controversy and misinformation was spread during these times, causing lots of hate towards groups of people and certain races. Then you also have people who didn't believe in things such as immunization, which led to further spread and less herd immunity, which is terrible for the people who are immunocompromised and or can't get the vaccine. So, overall, for this part, we need to do our part as a whole. I understand if your religious beliefs and other things interfere with you being vaccinated, and I understand that there are some risks to getting vaccinated, but often the risks of vaccination, things such as allergic reactions to it, are far milder and less permanent than what happens if you do end up catching the disease. So, to those that can get vaccinated, please do. Herd immunity is our main way we can protect those such as infants that can't get the vaccine, people who are immunocompromised, and people who cannot get the vaccine for other reasons. Please, guys, make sure to stay safe when you're sick and take proper measures for caring for yourselves when you are sick to prevent the infection of others. Besides that, this brings me to an end of my video. I am sorry that I did not go into much detail, which is honestly sad for me too, because I would have gone into more for you guys. But then this video would drag out to be 30 minutes long, and I'm pretty sure you don't want to watch that in the class. If you're more interested into learning any more subjects, such as immunology and such things, I recommend going to the YouTube site Kurzgesagt. They have lots of videos about human biology and disease, and they even have a book called Immune, which is lovely. It has lovely graphics and visuals. By the way, they're not sponsored, but go check them out. They're good. So they can keep pumping out more content. Besides that, I will be giving you adieu and leaving. If you are more interested in the subject, go learn. Please do. Knowledge is a gold mine, and it's always good to keep interested in the things you love. Besides that, I hope that you enjoyed this video and learned something, and maybe I gave you a little itch to scratch with learning more about it. Besides that, I will be leaving you to do whatever you do, and good afternoon, good evening, good night.